Hello there, my name's Joe, and this is my 1967 Mercedes-Benz Unimog. I've been in the market for a Unimog for quite some time now. Almost bought one last year, but the deal fell through. It was a little bit of a weird scenario, but I happened to find this one up in Long Beach, California. The price seemed a little too good to be true, so I did not want to miss on this opportunity to get one of these classic vehicles. Obviously, with anything too good to be true, there was some caveats to it. As you can see, there's a pretty big wire nest right there. The vehicle does not run. So that's something we're going to be tackling in this video series. Hopefully you guys will stick around for that, and let's keep it going. Just to give you guys a little bit of background on me, I was born and raised in South Africa, moved to the United States when I was about 17 here to Southern California. I've been a full-time service technician for about 15 years now. Started out with Mercedes-Benz. Pretty ironic that we ended up back here. Then I went to Ferrari, Maserati for about 10 years, and I've recently joined on with Porsche, which has been a pretty interesting change. So I'm no stranger to working on cars. Also pretty big into the off-road community. I do have a Jeep Wrangler. And a Suzuki Samurai. Also pretty big into dirt biking. And just being outdoors. Growing up in South Africa, we traveled a lot and got to explore beautiful parts of the country, and we were kind of always just out and about in the wilderness in the back of an old Land Rover. So this type of lifestyle is something that I was kind of born into, and just it's just a part of me. I also have to give a quick shout out to Russell at the tow company that came to pick this up in Long Beach. It's when you fill out for AAA, you say that what vehicle you have. 1967 Unimog is not really an option, so I just put 1967 Mercedes and told them I needed a flatbed. So Russell showed up, 62-year-old man. What a legend! I mean, he looked at this thing, stood there, lit a cigarette, and took a big puff and said, "Let's get this thing loaded." So next thing you know, he's got it all rigged up. I'll put some videos in here as well to show that. And yep, he was a legend. He got it all sorted and drove it all the way down to sunny Fallbrook for me, and there she sits. So for those of you that don't know, this is a Unimog 404. This is a 1967. I believe they made 65,000 of these during the production run. So there's quite a few of them around, but they are getting harder to find these days. The great thing about these Unimogs is they're essentially a tractor that has been made to go road legal. So it's a cab over design. You have your gasoline engine right here. It's a 6-cylinder gas engine. A lot of people think these come with diesels, but unfortunately they do not. We may have something in plan down the line to resolve that issue. Maybe swapping a diesel in there. Looking at the gear selectors right here, we've got quite a few different options for gear selector. I'm going to make another video going over that. But for now, we'll just kind of breeze right over it. The biggest thing about the Unimog, besides its massive size, is the fact that it comes with portal axles. If you don't know what a portal axle is, it's a little difficult to explain, but basically the axle sits up much higher and goes into a gear reduction hub, so there's an extra set of gears there. So that gives you a lot more ground clearance, and it multiplies your torque as well. As a result, you don't have to have a massive ring and pinion on your axle. It can be a little bit smaller than normal because the load is being taken up by the secondary gears right there. So as you can see right here, got tons of ground clearance. As I mentioned earlier, the previous owner did quite a bit of work on this, including some 40-inch super swampers. These are the stock 20-inch rims. You can see this ring right here. This is actually the footstep so that you can get up into the vehicle. All right, let's climb up into the cab and see if we can get a video here and kind of show you guys what's going on. It's a little tight in here.
That's what she said.
There's a massive steering wheel right in front of me. Let's see if I can position my camera a little bit. So, looks like we've got some different gauges here. I'm not quite sure what any of these are. Nothing really works. Obviously, we have no power hooked up. Sitting in the cab right here, this is actually your radiator overflow right here, right in front of you. So, that's probably going to get moved to another spot. We've got some different switches here. Looks like somebody installed a USB charger and a whole bunch of different things here. And looking at it now, it actually looks like we have electric power steering conversion done on this. So that's a huge plus. I mean, these are very expensive units. Standard controls, you got a clutch pedal here, brake pedal, and then here's your gas pedal, which actually goes to a linkage right down here. And that's what operates the throttle on the carburetor right on that side. As I mentioned earlier, we've got quite a few levers going on over here as far as shifting it into gear. I'm still busy trying to figure this all out, but from what I understand is if you hop it over like this, there's your first gear, which is your crawling gear. That's your second gear, which is also a crawling gear. And while you are in first or second gear, this is going to be your forward and reverse lever. So pushing it forward obviously gives you forward, popping it up like that puts you in reverse. So it's a 2-speed reverse, but only if you're in first or second gear. I also believe this is for the 4-wheel drive right here. So pulling that up and pinching your hand in there gives you 4-wheel drive. This is the parking brake right here. And if we hold this up, it engages the lockers as well. It's got front and rear mechanical lockers. Again, I believe only in first gear and second gear, but we're gonna have to play around with that and see how that all works. And then to get into the driving gears, you kind of have to just hit it over like that or something like that. Not sure, we'll have to figure that out. Obviously we're gonna need to learn how to do this to drive this car, but if you look up here, there's a turret hatch. So step one, I think, is going to be hooking up the battery to whatever they had it hooked up to over here. Obviously, a battery is not supposed to go here. This is for the passenger footwell. And start pushing some buttons and see what happens. Maybe it's something simple. We can get this thing fired up today, or maybe we've got some serious rewiring to do. Ultimately, I think I'm going to be replacing all of these and kind of just starting fresh. Maybe keep a couple of them, not quite sure what they are yet. But Glow Shift makes a really nice replacement unit that has everything in it. GPS, speedometer, tachometer, fuel level, temp sensor, that kind of stuff. We've got a nice, this is not the factory steering wheel. I think it came with the factory wheel on the back as well. Overall, these seats are pretty comfy. They're like suspension, so you can move up and down on them. And the room isn't terrible. People always complain it's pretty bad. I'm 6'4", and I think I could cruise fairly comfortably in this for a little while. We'll have to figure out the noise insulation and stuff like that. Obviously, there's no insulation on the roof. The entire thing, like I mentioned earlier, is bed linered, so it's very abrasive. We'll have to try and put a headliner and some sound dampening up in that as well. Looking under the engine compartment, it is quite a mess under here. These vehicles came with a military 24-volt system, so it looks like the previous owner tried to convert everything to 12-volt and maybe got lost somewhere in the mix and then kind of lost interest in the vehicle. However, it's kind of strange. This right here is a 24-volt inverter, so it takes 12 volts in, steps it up to 24 volts. So I'm not quite sure what he has going on with the 24-volt setup. There is a 12-volt battery shoved in the footwell right here and has some wiring going to it. And then on the battery box on the side, there are two 12 volts in series, so there's a 24-volt circuit still set up as well. So I'm not sure if he's trying to use this 24-volt inverter to charge the 24-volt setup, because that wouldn't really work. Obviously, we've got to do some digging around here in all the wiring to see what the heck is going on. But overall, I mean, some of the components look pretty good. This looks like a painless universal wire harness kit, and these are actually pretty decent. We've got some kind of electrical stuff over here. I think this is an upgraded ignition system. since he's used points and condensers. The story I got from the previous owner as well is that this is a new or a remanufactured engine from Mercedes-Benz along with the transmission. He did not have any paperwork for that, so I don't know how factual it is, but looking at the engine, I mean, besides it being a little dusty, it does actually look like it's in really good shape as well. Take the oil cap off, you can't really see inside of there, but everything looks very clean. The oil is also very clean as well. Along with some other upgrades that I showed you, it does have a massive aluminum radiator, and he put an electric fan on there as well. So looks like there's quite a few things done to this. Upgraded 12-volt alternator, so he's getting rid of the 24-volt system. And of course, the biggest showpiece is this massive bumper on the front. I mean, this thing is like ultimate crowd control. Not really sure what the goal was here, but man, you see this coming at you on the freeway, you're gonna get out of the way. I'm not quite sure if we're gonna keep it this way. I do plan on doing a nice overland, rock crawling build with this. So losing all this ground clearance isn't really gonna work for me, but I'm thinking about maybe we can chop this, right down the middle there, get some ground clearance back and still keep it pretty good. It is made out of aluminum, and it does look like it has some pretty decent TIG welds on it as well. So it's definitely worth keeping if we can salvage it. All right, moving on to the cab, or the rear cab. Looks like we have a futon couch mounted back here, and that's really it. There's a solid wall going into the secondary cab. I think typically these had a cutout right here, but it looks like the previous owner filled that in. There's quite a bit of bed liner in here as well. The entire vehicle has been bed linered. I mean, we're talking everything, guys, the whole thing, which has its pros and has its cons. The rust control has been pretty decent on this, except I did find one little spot right here that we're gonna have to address at some point. But other than that, it's in really great shape. Moving on to the rear cab here. You can see we've got plenty of storage space in here. I've started loading in some stuff, and I got some spare seats out of an Audi S6 that we're probably gonna try and wire into here. Moving around to the back end of the vehicle, another custom aluminum bumper, all TIG welded. This thing is a bit of a monstrosity, so this is gonna have to go for sure. We're losing a lot of ground clearance with this, so we'll probably end up making another bumper here in the future. Opening up this rear hatch. Now you can see all the room we have back here. There's those seats, and I did get a lot of spare parts with this. There's window regulators there, there's original lights right there. On this side here, we've got the original side mirrors for it. So it came with a good amount of parts. Hopefully we can use most of those when we start putting this thing back together. And then on the other side here, we have one more opening. And that goes all the way through to the other side. Here's the other side of the cab. It even came with the original spotlight that mounts up on the front bumper, or the front A-pillar, I guess. A couple straps there because we had to tow this thing in. So I reached out to Mercedes-Benz in Germany with my VIN number, and they actually sent me the original data card for this, which was pretty cool to see. This was originally purchased for the German military as a fire truck. Obviously it didn't have the 40s on it and the massive bumper, but this was used as a first responder to get to a fire. When the big trucks couldn't really make it out there quick enough, you would get a crew of 5 to jump in here. You had 3 in the back, a driver and a passenger, and this would be the first responder to get there. Typically they would have a PTO mounted water pump on the front that they could use to suppress the fire a little bit until the heavy duty rigs got there. And then most of them, all these hard cabs, came with a turret hatch out the top. So you could stand up here with the turret and spray the fire. So something you guys may have noticed is that there is no driver's door on the vehicle. However, when I picked it up from Long Beach, it did have a driver's door. And that's because I forgot to latch the door correctly, and it sheared off somewhere along the way. So you're thinking, oh yeah, how hard are doors to get for this Unimog? And they're probably about as hard as you think. They're virtually impossible. There are a couple you can find for the hard cab. There's quite a few you can find for the soft convertible cab, but these hard cab doors are near impossible to find. So I went out and drove around where I thought the door might have fallen off. I drove around a good portion of the night and I did not find it. And the next day my fiance went out and she drove around for 5 hours and she happened to find it lying on the side of the road on Ortega Highway. So she was able to grab that. We got the door. Obviously we have to try and fix these hinge pins right here. I have an idea for that, but that'll be in a later video. We can try and drill these out and get some Jeep pins in there. Try and get this door back on. All right, so that's the introduction video right there. Hopefully you guys stick around for this build. It's gonna be pretty exciting. What should we do with it? I don't know. I'm thinking about doing an overland camper, maybe keeping the original cab on the back right there, throwing extra rooftop tent on just so you could bring as many people as you want to bring with. Or should we take this hard shell camper off and put a custom box on the back? I like the idea of building a flatbed so I can use it for actually like truck things. But that is pretty intensive work on this because of the way the chassis is set up and how it flexes. So that is something I'd like to do down the line, but thanks for watching.